Welcome to UGC MHRD MOOCs online lecture courses. The topic of lecture is Politics of Foreign Assistance and International Aid. I am Professor R.P. Pradhan, Professor at Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at BITS Pilani, KK Birla, Goa campus, Goa, India. BITS Pilani is an institute of eminence accorded by MHRD, Government of India. Let us first look at why foreign aid. All of us we are aware that whenever there are natural calamities like flood, earthquake or any such disaster that confronts a country, lot of international sympathy in terms of money, material and kind flows in. They are all part of international foreign assistance and aid, and it can be in the form of money, material and manpower too, or in many other forms. Interestingly, foreign assistance and international aid can be donated, or as per OECD definition, it can be loaned also. However, generally such loans are softer loans and they are extended by foreign governments, organizations and individuals in rich countries to help people in affected areas. The example of Kerala flood, for that matter, if we look at Kerala 2018 August, we had a massive flood and lot of international help was offered to be given. In the case of Indonesian earthquake in 2015, also international help went in. In the case of Haiti, Hurricane Matthew, or in the case of developed countries like USA, Hurricane Harvey in Texas, international help also came in. These are all cases or examples of humanitarian assistance. Foreign assistance is also referred as international aid, economic aid or development aid. Apart from the humanitarian assistance, it can also be extended to war ravaged countries like Afghanistan or many of the sub-Saharan countries, and if you see in the slide, the American soldiers are unloading humanitarian assistance in Afghanistan. The second slide, the American aid agency USAID is conducting a training program in an agrarian field in Mozambique. The corner last slide, lot of international aid comes in for health, sanitation and major such programs covering HIV/AIDS programs, malaria eradication and so on. And interestingly, if you look at globally where the AIDS or what we call development assistance is being largely located, we see that Africa has been the largest recipient of it. In addition to Africa, there have been number of cases in South Asia and many other parts of the world where aid is being extended. Largely, therefore, we can sum it up that humanitarian assistance or as official development assistance ODAs, they cover funding for variety of purposes like humanitarian assistance, like disaster management, or it can be for education, it can be for food, it can be for water, it can be for capacity building, training programs and many such purposes covering multiple sectors. Let us look at the foreign aid structure and scope in this figure 1. If you look at it, the large part of the global foreign assistance is divided into 3 components, and the blue component of it constitutes what we call ODAs, which are the largest portion of foreign assistance and international aid, followed by the red patch in the graph that is covering humanitarian aid or such kind of assistance like Kerala flood and so on. And the remaining, if you look at it from 2010 onwards, there has been a series of refugee inflow into large parts of Europe and many other parts of the world, and in-donor refugee costs are also a rising phenomena in the recent times. Let us look at why foreign aid, how did it evolve, and why is it so important to be seen as a part of international political atmosphere or part of international politics. First of all, the fundamental premise is that it is good to be generous. However, while being generous is good, foreign assistance has always been seen very suspiciously. Many countries extend foreign assistance. However, many countries, they refuse to accept foreign assistance. Like in the case of flood in Kerala in 2018 in the month of August, UAE offered foreign assistance to India to help mitigate the situation, but Government of India thanked the UAE and refused to accept the aid. Many theoretical propositions and academics have enormously written on the politics of foreign aid, and that's where we have to see as to what is the context, the background, rationale and evolution of foreign assistance and aid, and why is it so seen controversially in many sectors of the world. First of all, foreign assistance and international aid begins to be institutionalized in the post-Second World War. Post-1945, it begins to be growing as a matter of foreign policy tool for many countries. But first of all, if we look at post-Second World War, what happened is that Europe was ravaged. Soviet Union and the Americans, they were the victorious countries of the world, and the world is divided into what we call the Cold War politics, or the politics of the capitalist world versus the communist world headed by Soviet Union. While the Americans led the capital world, they wanted their network of support countries, they wanted their sphere of influence to be built. So the Soviet Union and its allies wanted to have a competitive sphere of influence at the global level. And that's where two prominent things can be seen as the background for foreign assistance and international aid to be institutionalized. First, 1949, People's Republic of China emerges as the largest communist country in the world. Second, in the same year, Soviet Union exploded its first nuclear device. It's evident then that Soviet Union is backed by its military ability and backed by its ideological commitment and is in the process of expansion to influence many countries in the world and create its own sphere of influence. The Americans, therefore, also had equal competitive desire, and they also wanted to ensure that neither communism spreads nor the Soviet Union's expansionist processes and ideological formulations contaminate other countries in the world. It is in that context the Americans first started what we popularly know as Marshall Plan. Marshall Plan, or European Reconstruction Recovery Program, popularly known as, was a designed foreign assistance instrument to provide extensive material, technical and financial help to nearly 16 countries in Europe, largely Western Europe, that also included Germany, and integrate the region into a scheme of development assistance and thereby create a political atmosphere of alliance between North America and Western Europe, what we later see it as the formation of NATO. President Truman in 1949, in his famous four-point aid program, more clarified as to what is the necessity of foreign aid, where he talked about that the Americans must support the United Nations in the institutional endeavor to stop communism or rise of wrong influences in the world. Second, US program for world economic recovery. Particularly at that point, President Truman meant that Western Europe, which is so badly ravaged in the war, must have to be injected with financial assistance and technical and material assistance so that they begin to regroup themselves efficiently and stand as an alternative to the Soviet Union's expansionist profile. Third, support against communist aggression, or what Americans popularly called it as the export of communism by the Russians. And finally, the Americans also had the wise development of what you call sharing of their scientific ideas, values, research with the world of countries, so that many countries in the world all over, they get integrated to the American ideas, scientific progresses and development, and they do not fall prey to what you call the export of communism in the world. Soviet Union, on the other hand, also had a matching reply to the American Marshall Plan or President Harry Truman's .48 program. While Soviet Union squarely rejected Marshall Plan, at the same time they built roads in Kabul, Afghanistan. They also, as we know, in India, the Bhilai steel plant, they built it. They also supported Cuba in the late 50s and early 60s, and globally they also had a matching foreign assistance and aid program. And in the whole, if we look at it, take a rational opinion about the background in which foreign assistance and international aid grew, is that it begins with a political profile, it begins with a political motive, and it served a political purpose too. It is therefore quite natural that many scholars, they feel that while it is good to be generous and lot of money is being funded as foreign assistance, it has also served a political purpose globally, and therefore lot of suspicious propositions or lot of empirical evidence to establish that how foreign assistance has not served a noble objective, rather it has very often been used as a political tool, and it has contributed rather negatively in many such cases. I take you to the figure 2, where we look at from 1960 to 2016. If we look at in this 56 years period, globally there has been a financial foreign assistance and aid to the tune of 9.11 trillion US dollar, and if we divide them into annual averages, it is coming to 162.7325 billion US dollar. It is a massive amount of money, and we can compare that the total aid flow that has come in this last 56 years is nearly as much as India's annual budget. India is such a huge country, third largest economy of the world, third or fourth largest economy of the world, and the international aid that has flown in this last 56 years is nearly equal to India's budget. The annual average, if we talk of, that is nearly double than what we call Bahrain's, rich countries like Bahrain and Libya, it's nearly double than their annual budget. That means enormous money has been extended in the name of foreign assistance and international aid. It has gone to many countries of the world, and therefore it calls on us to look at what has happened to the money, where are they being donated, and what is the net lessons that we learn. And in the second part, we will talk about the politics of foreign assistance and international aid. I take you to the famous observation of Nobel laureate, Peace Nobel Prize winner Kailash Satyarthi, while receiving the Nobel Award. In his award lecture, he lamented that if at all 1 week of global defense expenditure is diverted to bring the children of the world into school, no child in the world shall be outside the school. He just wanted 1 week of global arms expenditure to be intervened or supported for education of the children in the world. Now let us look at empirical evidence. World Food Program WFP data says that nearly 3.2 billion US dollar is needed, if at all, annually it is needed, if at all we want to save the global child hunger. Global annual arms expenditure is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1800 US billion dollar, and if we calculate it weekly expenditure, then it comes to 37 billion US dollar per week. UNESCO data says that 262 million children are out of school globally. WHO World Health Organization in 2016 puts it that nearly 5.6 million children died of malnutrition globally. The sad paradox, therefore, is that globally there has been 9,000 billion US dollar that has been already spent. UFB wants $3.2 billion annually to create a favorable condition against hunger of children, and sad paradox is that hunger continues and the foreign assistance also continues, and that's where Kailash Satyarthi was very correct in observing that we have to look at the priorities that we have, priorities of our global expenditure and so on. And as a scholar of international relations, I look at the foreign assistance and international aid to evaluate what purpose they have served, who are the donors and who are the recipients, and how are they being spread globally. Now let us look at who are the donors and recipients of international foreign assistance and aid. First of all, let me clarify that except 2 dozen countries in the world, the rest of the world are coming in the category of recipients of foreign aid. Nearly 173 countries in the world, they receive foreign assistance and international aid. On the other hand, if we look at who are the donors, there will be number of classifications available in the international relations textbooks. I divide them for broader understanding, for simpler understanding, I divide them into 3 categories. First, the early European donors and the North American donors, along with them Australia, New Zealand, Japan, who are the early donors in the post Second World War scenario. Second is the international institutional donors. There are number of them, they are contributing hugely in the foreign assistance delivery process. Third, what we call them as neo-donors. Neo-donors is a recent rise, a phenomena of many of the developing countries who continue to receive aid, and at the same time they are also donor countries themselves. The larger classification of the neo-donors is China, Taiwan, India, Brazil, Arab countries, Turkey, and even Venezuela, Mexico, and many other countries of late are extending foreign assistance and international aid in variety of forms to many countries in their neighborhood and outside. These countries continue to receive aid, but themselves have also graduated to be what we call as the neo-donors in the international scenario. The traditional donors are Western Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. Institutional donors, the third category, they are also joined with many private donors in the world. Now, if you look at the early donors profile, out of the 29 countries listed in figure 3 graph, 23 countries are from European background, European countries, 2 are North America, USA and Canada, 2 are Oceanian countries, Australia and New Zealand, and 2 Asian countries, Japan, and later South Korea joins them as donor country 2. And we give a picture of nearly more than 5 decades of international foreign assistance that has been doled out, and we can clearly look at that the United States has in this period donated more than 700 billion US dollar and stands out to be the single largest donor in the world. And if you look at 5 major donors, then it is United States, Japan in Asia, Germany, France and United Kingdom. There are a number of other prominent players like Australia, Sweden, Netherlands, Norway and Denmark and Canada. Many of these countries contribute huge amount of money to the international foreign assistance program. In the sector of the institutional donors, we have a list of United Nations agencies that stand as foreign assistance and international aid donors. In addition to that, many of the regional and global banks are prominent donors of the world. In addition to that, we have also number of foundations and institutions that extend institutional assistance for the purpose of education, for the purpose of health, sanitation and many such purposes, and also for capacity building, scientific investigation and research work and so on. Now, if you look at the global distribution of donor countries 1950 to 2017, we see that the larger portion of the contributions therefore are coming from Europe. Nearly 57% of the international foreign assistance is dominated by the European, because the numbers is large, followed by North America 27%, Asia 13%, Oceania 3%. Now, I take you to understand the phenomena of rise of neo-donors. I largely call them as neo-donors. It's because they have emerged in the international foreign assistance map in the last over 3 decades. Particularly if you look at China, Taiwan, Arab countries, India, Brazil, Turkey and many other countries in the world, they fall into this category, who are more and more using foreign assistance while they themselves are recipients of foreign assistance too. Thank you so much.